The number of people who are charged with murder in Charleston County and get out on bond has gone down significantly in recent years. But even with the number of potentially violent criminals out there on the streets decreasing, how does the threat of a loved one's alleged murderer roaming free affect families? Live 5's investigative reporter Emily Johnson gives us a detailed look at the numbers and spoke with those on both sides of these cases to tell the story of one small decision having lasting impact.
You failed to bring this young man off the street. As a result, my son is no longer here.
And over.
She walked out the courtroom with us that day.
We hear from families upset about their loved one's alleged killer being allowed out on bond.
I had been trying for almost 3.5 years to get him locked up because all he got was a slap on the wrist with an ankle monitor.
Innocent until proven guilty, a phrase that sits at the backbone of our country's legal system, and one that can be argued in more ways than one into allowing accused murderers back out on the street. An ethical question that can be debated, but the number of those allowed out of jail while waiting their day in court is much lower in the past 2 years. In 2018, before the pandemic, 67% of accused murderers were allowed out on bond. That number increased to 84% in 2019. During the pandemic in 2020, 65% of those charged with murder were allowed out of jail and 48% were in 2021. The numbers significantly dropped after the pandemic. Bonds still remained high in 2022 at 61%, but in 2023, only 26% of accused murderers were allowed out of jail. Last year, only 16%. But that small percentage of bonds granted still has an impact.
So it's like it's a repeated cycle. So what's going to be next? We shouldn't have to be scared to speak on how we feel about these people.
Destiny Kinlock Stevens lost her 22-year-old brother, Jalen Kinlock Williams, in 2021 when he was shot and killed in his North Charleston home. The two men accused of Jalen's murder were granted bonds under $100,000.
The risk and the precautions of what happened that day, I think the bond should have been higher. It shouldn't have been no bond at all.
The charges against the two men have since been dropped, according to the solicitor's office, on claims of self-defense. But Jalen's family is not giving up hope in holding their son's killer accountable.
The people who did it, they let free and let them enjoy their life while the family suffers and grieves knowing the truth.
When a judge decides to grant an accused murderer bond, high-profile defense attorney Andy Savage says the court needs to ask two questions. Is a person a continuing danger, and what risk are they to the community?
Based on my experience, murderers are often the least worrisome person to let out of jail. More often than not, it's a one-time offense that circumstances gathered together which would probably not ever be reproduced in which a homicide took place.
Savage says bond is not determined on the character of the offense, but more so the character of the person.
In terms of education, employment, financial, the kind of things that really help you judge a person's character. Bonds are not appropriate for everybody. That's a privilege. And if they violated that privilege, then it should be taken away. They should be kept in jail.
Savage argues why bond should be granted in cases like the recently non-guilty verdicts of two men charged in a 2019 West Ashley murder case. The two men were not allowed out of jail for months, while there was no murder weapon, no bullets, no video, no cell phone locations, and no one identifying the men by name or face.
I mean, that's outrageous. That's an indictment on not a judge, but on the criminal justice system.
But even the possibility of a bond being granted can create problems. The National Mass Violence Center's Associate Director, Angela Moreland, says any time throughout the entire court process that there is a potential for bond, that in itself is trauma for victims.
And what we found is that their fear levels of another incident occurring or of any type of violence occurring is almost triple what we find in the general population. So they're already scared. They're scared often. People are often very scared to go to public places, to engage in everyday activities.
No one knows what the future of bonds for accused murderers will look like here in Charleston County, but it's clear that a judge's decision can have rippling effects far beyond the courtroom. For Live 5 Investigates, I'm Emily Johnson.